Have you ever been in a conversation and someone mentions a special interest that you want to talk about?
Non-stop?
But it's just a little too off topic.
Perhaps there's a random subject someone mentions in passing that you really just want to learn a little more about.
Or maybe you want to listen to some of your favorite podcasters cross over and cover something offbeat and completely unrelated to the podcast they're currently hosting.
Introducing Glitterjaw Presents, a variety podcast feed from the hosts you know,
With plenty of friends along the way.
Each Glitterjaw Presents episode will feature at least one host from a Glitterjaw show,
Covering a topic that may not be related to the shows that they host.
Or any of the Glitterjaw shows currently on our roster.
These will be standalone episodes,
Miniseries,
Odd experiments
And other special presentations on topics ranging
from music
to reality TV
to conversations about the queer media that shaped us.
and so much more.
no matter what the topic, you can expect the same quality from all of your favorite queer podcasters.
and some guests.
Talking about the things they're passionate about.
If that sounds interesting to you, make sure you subscribe to the Glitterjaw Presents feed wherever you get your podcasts.
And follow Glitterjaw on Instagram and Blue Sky to be alerted when new episodes drop.
Glitterjaw.
Glitterjaw.
Glitterjaw presents.
It's Screonk, a Godzilla movie marathon, where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. I'm Derek, and I've seen all the Godzilla movies.
I'm Doug, and I've seen 34 Godzilla movies and 1962's Moonfall.
We're talking about one of Ishirō Honda's most ambitious projects, the science fiction film featuring a rogue star and a big old walrus, of course, the film Gorath, also known as Yosei Goraisu, which translates to Calamity Star Gorath, or, depending on how you translate it, Ominous Star Gorath. Ooh. Both quite good names, I would say. Released in Japan on March 21st, 1962. Directed by Ishirō Honda and written by Takeshi Kimura, with a story by Jojiro Okami, special effects by Eiji Tsubaraya, produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka, and a score by Kan Ishii. We'd like to take a quick moment to thank our spectacular patrons, Bo, Carl, Katie, Jason, Zoe, James, Keith, Cody, Toby, Hamish, Jace, Joe, David W., David A., Russ, Christian, Reed, Ben, Stuart, Will, Marilee, Robbie, Tyler, and Preston.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're watching Gorath. We both watched this for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, based on what we talked about before, you had literally no information or knowledge about anything this movie entailed.
No.
So I'm very
and I may
curious.
want to modify some of my predictions. Now that
Sure.
I've seen it.
Well, of course. Yeah. It will eventually be revealed why we added this to our canon of Godzilla films that we're watching for the main feed of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
All will be revealed in the future, but not today. So you'll just have to still be blind as to why. We'll discuss that later at the end. All of that aside, what are your feelings on this movie as a movie?
It's okay. It's so weird. It's like I like it. It is a disaster movie. It's a ridiculous disaster movie, and I love a ridiculous disaster movie. I referenced Moonfall at the top of this. There's also a Junji Ito comic called Remina, which is about a planet coming to Earth, like a planet falling to Earth. Like
the same connections with that too. Yeah,
right.
It's a really, really wild concept you can have for a disaster film, and every time it's done, it's always at least interesting in some way.
Right. So like that is immediately an interesting idea to me, and there is a lot to be done with it as far as like the implications of a world ending, but you have enough time to reflect on and at least have some hope that maybe you could stop it, whether you actually can stop it or not. I like that a lot. it is wild to me that there is a monster in this movie at all.
We'll talk about that. That is actually its own conversation. Like, I know he doesn't have a lot of screen time, but it will be a significant-ish conversation about that. Actually.
I have to imagine.
Yeah.
And it is wild how much of this movie is really kind of one, almost, not entirely, but one sort of point A to point B plot for being an hour and a half long. So it's strange. I enjoyed it because of what it is. I don't know that it's a great movie by any stretch, but it appeals to me specifically.
Yeah, I don't know if all listeners would necessarily know your like really special connection with the film Moonfall. Special not in terms of like circumstances, but just in how strong and unique it is. In a way that I don't know I've ever encountered anyone else having as strong of a connection with that movie as you do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I love an over the top disaster movie. Roland Emmerich does it best. Moonfall is a Roman Emmerich movie where the moon is falling to Earth. So folks were not aware.
We did talk about that pretty extensively on the '98 Godzilla movie. That's right, because of the Emmerich stuff. So actually, it's valuable. If you listen to that, you probably didn't know that. No, it is funny. And what's funny is that like I knew going into this, I knew that this was a movie about either a planet or a star. I wasn't clear because depending on where you read, some people just call it a planet. It's like they literally don't call it that. They literally call it a star. I knew that it was some kind of planet or star, and I knew that that's what Gorath was, and I knew it was going to collide with Earth, and I knew that there was like a walrus monster in here, but I didn't know the context for it. I knew it was sort of a little bit controversial. I totally wasn't thinking about the Moonfall connection until you brought it up. I'm like, oh yeah, of course Doug would love that shit. That's so funny. Like that didn't even occur to me. I was also thinking of Remina. I was thinking of the series finale of Smallville, which is the weirdest fucking decision they ever made. Because the final the final thing is there's a planet colliding with Earth, and you have to become Superman to push it away. It's not my favorite finale of all time, I will say.
Can't imagine why.
Not the best part of that show, I think. But yeah, I think there's something different, I think, with a full like planet or celestial body like a star colliding with Earth as opposed to just a meteor or an asteroid, like, which can still be like an extinction level event, but there is something about a celestial body as big as the Earth is, if not bigger, threatening to destroy it. That's sort of like, oh, there's no hope if this thing hits us.
That shit's overkill.
That
like
shit
vaporized.
Right. And I think that makes what already would be kind of an existential terror like that much more, because you can't even pretend that there's any semblance of hope. You know what I mean? That's sort of like, if this happens, this is the end, and there's not even any, like, even with like nuclear war, which is like also a deeply existential threat, there's like some slim chance, like, I don't know, maybe I'll just like be in a refrigerator and I'll survive it. I don't know. Like, but there's no chance. And that level of existential fear, I do think is uniquely interesting and a fun thing to try to untangle in a film.
Yeah, I feel like an asteroid can feel like an accident or an act of nature. I feel like nuclear war is like, mankind dooming itself. There's something about a celestial body colliding with Earth that feels like maybe, regardless of what you believe, there is something bigger than us and it hates us. Like, it truly feels like so doomy.
Yeah, this is God throwing a punch right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then just like the lead up to it and the way that anybody telling this kind of story conceptualizes both the like impact to the Earth itself as a body, but also the effect it has on humanity leading up to it, I think is always interesting. Always.
Melancholia too. I can't believe I brought up the Smallville fucking series finale before. Melancholia. Have you seen Melancholia before?
No.
It's a wonderful movie. It's a
okay
upsetting and depressing movie, but it is literally a movie about depression through the lens of also a planet called Melancholia that's about to collide with Earth.
Right,
it's really good. Kirsten Dunst, always killing it, but I would highly recommend it. But like, it's another way to do it, because it's not like a disaster film. It's a very like personal, internal, like, movie about what it is like to live with depression, and then like having a world-ending event and like how those two things sort of compare and contrast. And it's a really beautiful movie, but it's just like this concept, you can do so much with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also want to bring up those comparisons though, because like, I do think that this movie I feel a little cold towards it in spite of all of that, which I was sort of surprised by, because I was like, I do like this concept. I've seen this concept to other things, and I was excited to see what a Toho and Ishirō Honda and Tsubaraya interpretation of that concept would be, even though I know the examples that we brought up are all things that come after it, but like it's still existing in that same world, right? So I was really excited to see like how it would be, and I do think these special effects of this movie are really amazing. Like that's what to come to this movie for. I think
this is a Tsubaraya showcase.
It
like,
totally is. You can, and this was definitely feels like it is coming at a time in Toho before all the budget cuts happen. Like this is when it's just like put a bunch of money into this big project and make it explosive, and they do. It looks really good.
Yeah.
But I think it's like its interpretation of this existential threat, I just think I end up coming out of it just feeling it feels kind of dull to me in a way. That doesn't make sense because it's such a wild disaster movie with great special effects, which I think we can talk about. I think that has to do with like what Honda was interested in exploring with this movie. But let's talk about it, because I think we can kind of work through this, and maybe I'll come out of this feeling better. But I came out of this movie disappointed in how much I was not into it.
No, I get that.
What I mean?
I get that. I'll be curious to talk more about it.
Yeah. Production wise, I think the big thing is that this is produced at the height of the space race. So like, over in the US, this is like right after Kennedy had just pledged to put a man on the moon at the end of the decade, which we know happens, or at least that's what they want us to believe.
Oh my God.
No, it did happen.
Gorath ate the moon.
Didn't they like just announce that they were going to go to the moon again soon or something?
Yeah, it's part of the Artemis program.
Yeah. So, I guess this is timely, question mark. I don't know when that's supposed to happen. But also I think this was like the same year that America's Mariner 2 probe would reach Venus as well. So like, it's like very, there's very tangible space. It's not just theoretical. It's like, there are very tangible space things happening where it's like, there is potential for us to go to other planets. There's potential for like us to have this technology to actually like explore space in a way that feels very real. And I think that sort of ignites things for people working on this movie. Similarly in Japan, the government, like I think in 1960, so just a couple of years before this movie, had just created the National Space Activities Council, which is advocating for peaceful space exploration. And then alongside that, there's more developments and agencies that will be created throughout this decade. So even in Japan, there's a lot of just like conversations and interest and research and development into like space programs, or even just theoretical space exploration. Like if we're able to go into space, how do we handle that? Right. Yeah. So it's all in everyone's minds. So it's around the time that Jojiro Okami, who we've talked about before, he's usually their sci-fi guy. You mentioned him with Dogra and the Mysterians and stuff like that. He pitches Gorath as a sci-fi film to sort of reflect the interest and questions of those real world space exploration developments. The other thing he does, though, is that he borrows a plot from an American 1931 novel and its 1951 film adaptation, When Worlds Collide, which is about humanity building an ark to escape Earth because a rogue star is about to collide with it.
Whoa. So, okay. Yeah. I was wondering about that. I was wondering if this was based on something or not. Because it feels like
not officially based on it, but it's like the Toho thing of just like, what if we just like take an American thing and just like make our version of it,
Sure. You know what? Americans do that all the time. So
yeah, it's fine. I'm not mad about it because it usually results in really interesting ideas. So go for it, man. Yeah. Yeah. And so in Okami's initial story pitch for this, Gorath, like it would have that concept obviously of a star about to destroy Earth, but the main trajectory of the movie isn't how do we prevent Earth from being destroyed? It's how do we pick the best of the best Japanese elite and evacuate them from Earth, just like in When Worlds Collide.
Sure.
When Honda is involved, he's not interested in that. He's actually interested in almost the opposite of that. He's particularly interested in making a movie that's about how to pursue science ethically and positively, and how to bring nations together to save the world. Like that's what he wants the movie to be about. Not this like pick the best of the best and only save them. So he and Takeshi Kimura refashioned the story to essentially kind of almost take down the ethos of When Worlds Collide, essentially. And it's sort of like, this is about how important it is for international cooperation across races, across nationalities, for science above politics, that everyone plays a role in saving this one planet that we are all on so that it can have a happy ending at the end of it, essentially.
I would like to challenge Ishiro Honda by simply saying, why not do both? You can still have a happy ending. And then you at least have a conflict that is a little bigger than the philosophical conflict we get in this movie, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I understand where he's coming from, though, because I do think that's a very common sort of story. I don't know how common it was in sci-fi at this point, but at least, especially after this movie, a common thing of sort of like, oh, the people who get saved from the disaster, how do they move forward, how do they go colonize another planet or something like that. I like his idea being like, but everyone matters though. Like why would we want to pick only the best of the best in the world? Everyone here matters, so we should try to save everyone.
But you can put that question and his answer in this movie. You know what I mean?
I see what
and
you're
I think
saying.
then you are directly addressing that ethos or that idea, or directly criticizing that type of story if you don't like it within your story. You can very clearly decide what is right and what is wrong.
Sure. No, and like actually directly challenge it. I see what you mean.
Right.
Yeah, they could have had that and then had them be wrong and then saved the whole world. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, there's not really like villains in this movie at all, which is a little bit weird.
You know,
which is fine.
There's a way to do it, but
there's an opportunity to have some villains in it if you have people that are trying to escape the planet. No, that is interesting.
I think it makes your thesis a little stronger, you know?
Yeah. I think what Honda said that he wanted to not focus on so much, but like make sure he included was like including plenty of scenes of everyday people in this movie. You know, obviously there's a lot of scientists and stuff who were very involved in the actual solution, but he said, quote, "They cannot be at the forefront of big problems, but there are so many more of them. So those scenes create depth for the story. These are the types of people that I want in my films. So this is the very foundation of my films." So I do think that like he's always been historically a very like people centric filmmaker, I feel like, or at least in terms of how he like views the world. So I think that makes sense that he just wants to be like, yeah, these guys were focusing on them because like they literally have the skills and abilities to like do the science, but that doesn't mean that the people who can't do the science don't matter. So I want to make sure that you still show plenty of them. So you have plenty of scenes of just like cab drivers commenting on what's going on and people at, you know, at dance clubs and stuff or whatever.
Well, and I think like within the micro genre, that's correct. Like that's the correct choice,
agree, yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. The other way it manifests that I'm more conflicted about is that he specifically wanted this movie. He specifically wanted to make a disaster movie where there wasn't widespread panic. He says that he thought a widespread panic in this situation wouldn't be real, quote unquote. And he says, quote, "If something like this happens, people would think seriously about how to deal with it. It's a much more natural style rather than overreacting, a style that the audience can take more seriously." And that's a quote from his biography. And it's a thing that I was like thinking about a lot because obviously I think the go-to for disaster movies like this that you expect that I would argue makes them fun is seeing widespread panic in a movie and seeing both the best and worst of people kind of in conflict. I think that's always really fun with these. That's what people like about post-apocalyptic shit. Like, I know that it can be bleak sometimes, but there is something fun about seeing like, what would people at their absolute worst be like in this kind of situation? And, you know, so like you'll watch a big disaster movie and you have people fighting or whatever. Like,
well, the worst people are at their absolute worst, and the best people are at their absolute best. You get these like distilled. People can be complicated, but like your extremes are at their most extreme, right? People doing the most heroic, sacrificial shit, and people doing the worst, heinous, most selfish shit. You know? Yeah.
But I was thinking about it though, and like, I'm like, because my instinct when he's saying like, we'll be more realistic, people would want to come together, they would think seriously about it. And I'm like, fuck no, everybody sucks. And you know, it's a cynical way to think, but I'm like
2026.
Right. But I am also like, you can challenge me on this. I might be wrong about it, but I was thinking back to like like an existential threat is very different from like an immediate disaster, right? Like if there's literally a hurricane happening right now, I think that's different than we know in like days time a planet will obliterate our entire planet.
Yes.
It's a like an existential threat like that is, you are going to react differently to that than just like a really bad storm or something, like that kind of disaster that's happening immediately right in front of your face. But I also am like, the closest thing to an existential threat we've had recently was like COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that the very beginning of like lockdown, when that happened, I do think the majority of people just did kind of go with it at first. It wasn't very long. It was a brief window, and it very quickly became more politically charged. People started challenging it and things like that. But we did successfully coordinate a lockdown that did curb a pandemic that was in a way a sort of existential threat. And there was a period people were staying home and socially distancing and wearing masks. Obviously where that eventually goes is, not pretty. But when that initially started, people didn't immediately riot in the streets about it. You know what I mean? Like people did just kind of go with it, reluctantly or not. And I think that particular point in time at like just the like very, very beginning of COVID happening and the very beginning of lockdown, I think is what Honda is more looking at, is sort of like that moment people just go with it. And it's just like, you know what? We see this danger happening. We're going to work together and go with it. And maybe if the planet was like going to be hitting them in like 3 years time, I think it probably would have been a different story in this movie, but because it's like just this brief window where they had this opportunity to stop it. Like, I think that's the time period he's looking at. Does anything I'm saying make any sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think, I do think it is worth bringing up COVID, because I think that is going to be such a, important reference point in like how we interpret stories, and how we interpret stories about like humanity's reaction to something as a whole. And I think the time frame of it is an interesting way to break that down, because like I do remember like that first weekend and just being like, well, I'll grab some books and maybe I'll be locked up for a week and maybe it'll be a nice break or something. Like a lot of people sort of were just approaching it that way.
Yeah.
I do think the big difference though is and I should say, I don't dislike the fact that Ishiro Honda wants to present an optimistic view of humanity, one that would continue to work together in a selfless way to try to solve the problem. I think the difference is, and I guess maybe this is not exactly what the movie's saying, I do think if there's like confirmation of an extinction level event, and the only people who can really be confident that it would work are the few people who have any sort of actual agency over the situation, I do think the average person would be more likely to just be like, well, how do I spend my next 3 days, I guess? You know what I mean? Than actually panicking. That said, I do think, I find Honda's decisions interesting for this, because I still think from a storytelling perspective, to commit to everybody being calm is to commit to less conflict and tension in your movie. And so regardless of what you believe, you can have people in your movie acting opposite to that, because then you can, just like with the other thesis, you can strengthen your thesis, right? Like the people who are panicking can be the ones who are doing wrong, or the ones who are potentially screwing up the people who are optimistic and who are hopeful and who are trying really hard. I think you make persistent and persevering heroes out of the people who keep charging forward when you see people who are not. There isn't really, except for the timestamps on this movie, there really wasn't a point where I ever believed that they were in that much danger, because everything was so calm, and the movie never really seemed to make you think, even though in these types of movies people are going to be fine, regardless of level of destruction, like the earth is not going to be destroyed, the movie still wants you at some point to believe that it could happen, against your better judgment, that maybe the moon will crash into the earth, that's what you want. So it's just interesting to me to hear his rationale, because I think his rationale can still exist while including some of those other things. Like, I think you can include your counter argument in your argument. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, because when I was
if
saying
only
all
for
that,
the sake of
and
storytelling and movie making and audience sort of like engagement, you know.
that's the thing, and I think that's why I feel conflicted about a lot of this stuff, because I apologize for having to bring up fucking like COVID in our conversation at a movie about a fucking star gonna blow up the earth or whatever.
But anytime
like,
you look at something where we're being told that humanity will unite, that will be our reference point for a very long time.
Because I think that was a situation that we recently experienced that was a very universal experience of seeing, I think, people kind of both at their best and at their worst at different periods of time, depending on where it was and where they were and who they are. And so I think that, and I was just trying to understand Honda's point of view here. Cause like I said, like my initial reaction is like, no, people will be their worst. And it's like, maybe that's not true. Maybe we've seen historically that that's not necessarily true. However, like you're saying, the counterpoint to all of that is that this is a movie. This is all fake. You are also, you're trying to entertain an audience to some degree. And I think that one reason that I'm kind of cold on this movie that I want to like and like in concept is just that I just think it's kind of weirdly dull for a lot of it because there's very little conflict in it. The special effects fucking rule, but like, I don't know. I could watch just a compilation of cool Tsubaraya like special effects and get the same effect as watching the entirety of this movie in some regards, and that's not a good sign. And I hate saying that because I respect Honda's really positive, very pacifist sort of outlook on these things, but it's weird the way that it manifests in such a like dull way in this movie, you know?
Well, I do think it's interesting. I mean, I think it poses a fascinating question about like what a movie should be or what a movie can be, and I do think like there is generally an answer to that if you are making a movie that is meant to entertain people, which is what this studio is doing, right? But like there is sort of an interesting idea here that if Honda wasn't necessarily making a movie like for a studio whose purpose is to entertain people, this could still be a cool experiment. You know what I mean? Like just an exploration as opposed to like sometimes I don't know why it feels a little bit more maybe acceptable, but like in a book or a movie that's purely a character study or something like that, sometimes it feels okay to be like, well, this is just like an exploration. Nothing needs to be solved. Nothing needs to be answered. It's an exploration. And I do think this movie, weirdly, is more of an exploration than it is like an actual story with like a rise and fall and all that sort of like traditional stuff, like traditional conflict or anything like that. And I think that's interesting. I just don't know. I don't know. It puts this movie in a really weird spot when you consider all the movies that come after it dealing with a similar subject. And not every movie dealing with a similar subject has to be a Roland Emmerich over-the-top special effects action movie. You brought one up, right? Melancholia. Or like there's that one movie, is it Don't Look Up, maybe on Netflix with Jennifer Lawrence, where like the world is ending and she understands the world is ending and no one else seems to care. Like you can do interesting things outside of action. But I think in those cases, there's still conflict because the conflict is all interpersonal and philosophical. And this one doesn't even really want seemingly to deal with the philosophical conflict. There's a light philosophical conflict, right? Like there's the scientist and there's the guy who's sort of like, these young people are so convinced that we can solve problems and we can't. Like that's like the most conflict you get. And again, that could be fine, I guess. It's interesting to know that he made this movie with that specific philosophy in mind, because then it brings forward the question of like, if you could make a movie that's just a representation of your philosophy, would it be entertaining? I mean, probably not for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean that there isn't still like an interesting craft there. I don't know. I get what you're saying, like, because I agree with you. I do think ultimately as a movie, this one's pretty dull. It is not exactly an exciting movie to watch. It is one that I frequently sort of like stopped and got up and refilled my drink and did a lap around my apartment and then like
time keeping my attention with this, which bummed me out a lot.
Right. So I mean, it's odd. I think it is a fascinating one for how unfortunately sort of flat it is, given who made it and what we know about him, you know?
Yeah, and everyone who's involved in it. It's like a lot of
totally.
talent. It's a visually good looking movie. We'll talk about that. I wanted to bring up too the other thing that Honda was interested in that I also appreciate. I don't know that it made the movie better, but I appreciate that he was going for it, is that he was actually very interested for this one to have some level of plausibility in the science of it. Like, he was really interested in scientific explanations. And he and Takeshi Kimura actually spent a week at Tokyo University consulting with an astrophysics professor, and they even crunched numbers about the rocket propulsion solution if it could possibly happen. And so, like, a lot of the numbers you see, like, written on the blackboard or things that some of the astronomers and astrophysicists say in this movie are as close to realistic and authentic as they possibly could be, given their understandings of things at the time.
That is so funny to me, because surely the first thing the astrophysicist said was, that's not possible and it would destroy the planet. Like, and then Honda was like, yeah, but what if it
I don't know,
did
Doug,
work?
Are you an astrophysicist? How do you know if it wouldn't work?
Because when I watched this movie, I looked at moving Earth theory. It's an astrophysical or astrophysics, whatever theory. The idea of moving a planetary body, and if you even could accomplish it, even slightly, like, you would destroy, like, the climate of the Earth, you know, like its relation to the moon, because the moon, like, celestial bodies are, like, in this really weird, precise mathematics, especially ours, like, maintaining life, you know, so little things could really fuck us up.
Well, I remember in Doctor Who, they just wrapped, like, the TARDIS wrapped, like, a space rope around the Earth and dragged it across the universe when it had gotten teleported away, and everyone just held on really tight, and it was fine. And
well, and look,
it was great.
I love that. That's not a complaint from me. I just think it's so funny that, like, I watched this movie and I was like, I love that this movie doesn't give a shit whether or not this would actually work. They're just
Honda
committing to
deeply
it.
Did actually,
and apparently he deeply was concerned with whether or not it could work, which is just not what I was expecting. Because I mean, like, this is the Superman thing, right? Superman flying around the Earth to make it, like, go backwards. Everyone knows that's absurd, but you want to believe it for the sake of what's going on, right? That's how I feel about what's going on in this movie. I'm like, yeah, sure, you could turn the entire planet into a rocket ship. Why not? You know?
It's funny too, because apparently he was also, like, the stuff that is in the movie that is, like, there's stuff that, like, they knew wouldn't be scientifically accurate that Honda was apparently, quote, uncomfortable with, like the idea that the moon, that Gorath would be close enough to the moon to destroy it, but at that point it should be close enough to Earth to also fuck Earth up as well before it even gets there. And Honda was apparently, like, not happy with that, because it's just like, that doesn't make any sense. But it was Tomoyuki Tanaka who was just like, my guy, it's a movie. Like, you can't be too realistic with it, my dude.
So Honda was upset with the fact that somebody told him if it was close enough to destroy the moon, it would also be close enough to destroy the Earth.
Just that was in the script, and he kind of was uncomfortable with how much that wouldn't make sense, and that it shouldn't be in there. But Tanaka was like, you got to keep that in there because it's a crazy cool thing to do, to blow up the fucking moon in your movie. So blow up the moon, even if it doesn't necessarily make scientific sense.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, like, yeah, I mean, the moment anything affects the moon, it affects the Earth, you know?
But, like, because that would fuck it up.
Yeah.
Like, Honda didn't want it, but it's sort of like, but it would be a cool thing to have in the movie, so put it in there even if it's not realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, Earth doesn't have a moon anymore in this timeline. It's just gone.
No, which is really cool. That did surprise me. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, yep, they're unafraid with shaking this up, man. Earth literally has no moon anymore. The other thing, just a couple other production things. The music is by Kan Ishii, which is, I think, the only time we're ever going to talk about him. What's interesting about him, and I'm not totally positive how he ended up on this movie, other than just he'd done a handful of film scores, and I guess was just in Toho's roster of people to go to. But he's more of, like, a ballet, opera, and choral music composer.
Oh, interesting.
I think he only did, like, 9 movie scores ever. So it's kind of funny he's on this. It was funny though, because I remember as soon as the movie started, I was like, oh, this is obviously Ifukube, because the main theme just sounds like a more desperate version of the Godzilla march that Ifukube did.
Well,
and then it's like, nope, totally different guy.
Well, I was going to ask, like, we've heard this music before, right? But apparently we've not heard this music. We've just heard extremely similar music.
Or unless the score maybe has been reused in future movies in certain ways. Maybe.
Okay.
I think it maybe has been, actually. I'm not
that
positive.
might be more plausible, actually.
I think that's what it is. But, like,
because the music that's the music that's playing when you see the construction of their bases, I feel like is a song I'd heard before. Like, I felt like I was humming along to it. But I mean, I guess some of their, especially their, like, march type music is going to be, I guess, a little bit more predictable and easier to follow and pick up quickly. But,
yeah, I didn't think to look if it's been reused, but I wouldn't be surprised if we've heard riffs on it used in other movies, because that happens all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
The other thing about this one is I think it had a pretty standard budget. It did not recoup its production cost, though. It technically was not a success.
I the fact that it was really hard for us to watch made me feel like this is not like a beloved movie that like has a lasting legacy because people loved it so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I was kind of worried the more I kept seeing these big elaborate miniature sets. I was like, ooh, they're spending a lot of money on this.
I think it's also a big reason why King Kong versus Godzilla happens, because it's like, they're like, okay, this movie didn't do very well, so we're going to double down on like all monsters all the time, because that is what has worked for us so far. And so
makes
then
sense.
they go hard on making King Kong versus Godzilla the next year, which is a huge, gigantic hit.
Yeah.
And it's like all monsters all the time in that movie. So
I'm still really glad we have all these Ishiro Honda sci-fi and horror movies that are like not kaiju movies. I think they're so... It's truly like, obviously the podcast we're doing is for the monsters, but like one of the most delightful sort of like side dishes along the way that's sort of incidental is all these other Ishiro Honda movies.
Yeah. Because of course there's not a single monster in this movie, right? It's all about just a star that's going to collide with Earth.
I was genuinely starting to wonder.
I mean, for good reason. Yeah, let's talk about the walrus in the room. So before we talk about his design and everything, design of this creature, Magma.
It has a name.
Magma, like magma.
Yeah,
you know. Even though he's an ice guy, but I think it wasn't, I think it's just because of like volcanic stuff underneath the earth or whatever. Tomoyuki Tanaka had pushed Honda to include a monster. Honda never wanted to do that. That was not in the original story. I imagine it wasn't in the original script, but Tanaka was like, it's a Tsubaraya effects movie. You got to have a fucking monster. Like, look how elaborate these effects are. And Honda like reluctantly put it in. Originally, it was going to be kind of a reptilian monster, but Honda's like, I can't just put another like reptilian saurian kind of creature in a movie after Godzilla has already happened, especially given I didn't even want a monster in this in the first place. So that's why it changes to just like a monster, a walrus, which you've never seen like a kaiju version of any of these movies.
Sure.
It's also why it's referred to as like having reptile blood later on in the movie, because that was just from the script and they just never changed it, I guess, when they changed him to a walrus. But Honda has like gone on the record that he hates it. He said that, I think that left a scar on this film. Like it was only there because they wanted to profit with monsters. He says it would be my top favorite film except for that monster. So he loves this movie, but he hates the fucking monster in it. And that's the thing that he hates the most about it.
I don't disagree. I think it's the worst part of the movie.
And
I feel like you can tell.
I love the kaiju. I like what Magma is. We'll talk about it, but it makes no goddamn. I cannot believe that I am arguing against having a giant fucking walrus in your movie, and yet it's so poorly integrated into the narrative that it's like, yes, get him the fuck out of here.
You've been watching a movie for an hour that has told you what it is, and that movie is not a kaiju movie. So like to just have this random scene, it honestly feels like something that was like shot after the fact and put in because somebody was like, well, you didn't put your monster in, what? And then they were like, I get everybody back. It's like so different than literally everything else in the movie. And
it has no impact on anything.
No impact at all.
Yeah.
And there is a part of me that's sort of like, if you really had to do it, like I've criticized other things we've talked about for this. Usually it comes up in cartoons on a different podcast, but like if you are forced to do this, at least try to find some sort of way to make it kind of work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I know that's hard. That's so much easier to say than it is to do. But it genuinely, I'm with him. It's the worst part of the movie. I don't want it there either, given the movie I was already watching. And it ends up being doubly disappointing to know that it has no impact on anything.
What's really funny is like, this is one of the few times when like a lot of like American executives are like correct about things. This was one of those movies, like a lot of movies around this time period where like when it's exported to America, like they do a lot of re-editing and stuff. Right. So like there's the version of this movie that most Americans have seen in English. Like there's some cuts, there's some reshuffled scenes. There's like, I think one version of it, I don't know if it's existing in every single version of it, but at least for a period of time, there's like a 7-minute prologue, like explaining space stuff and with a lot of like celestial images and stuff like that. Like it's that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which plenty of like American adaptations of Toho movies or American imported Toho movies were doing that, right? The big thing that they do, I think that's the most notable, is that they cut Magma the fuck out of this movie. I believe what the story is based. I don't know that anyone has come out and say this explicitly, but a few places I've read have said that like they did just, were making the movie and did dub those scenes with the intention of including it. I think that they even sort of were intending to kind of tweak it to make the monster a little scarier. Like they added like fog in post-production, like optically. So it was like a little more obscured.
Sure.
But then like executives who were watching it were like, this doesn't make any fucking sense, and made them cut it out.
Yeah.
If you watch the sequence of it, the way it's re-edited, it's very clear that it was kind of like a hasty re-edit, because they don't just chop that section of the movie out. They basically kind of like cut around the monster and just make it seem like there was a bunch of explosive or volcanic kind of action happening, and that's what they're investigating. And then you just randomly see the carcass at the end of it. Like they didn't cut that part out, but they don't comment on it at all. And it's like really, like if you watch it, it's like kind of incomprehensible what's going on.
Gotcha.
And like you can kind of hear the roar in the background, because I think that they're basically cutting around like something they'd already edited and dubbed and then maybe changed a few lines.
Yeah.
The distributor like mockingly called him Wally the Walrus
Sure.
because they hated him so much.
Yeah.
So like, it's funny because like that means that a lot of Americans who have seen this movie don't even know there was ever a kaiju in it, or like saw that random thing and was sort of like, what the fuck was that weird ass like walrus that they killed? And then don't think about it and don't necessarily even realize that there's a whole ass fucking monster sequence. But I don't blame them for cutting it out, because it doesn't make any sense.
Right. Exactly. No, I think it is correct to take it out of the movie. I mean, the movie is made, whatever, but I think if you're already editing stuff when it comes over, it is correct to edit that out.
All of that said, I do like this guy. I know that it doesn't make any sense for him to be in this movie. I know it is not, it's stupid that he's here. I love that we have a walrus kaiju, and I think he is very, very cute personally. Look at this image of him, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
Look how cute this guy is. This is just an image of like the suit from an upward angle in black and white. And I don't know what it is about it in that picture, but he looks so fucking adorable. He's like, has like puppy dog eyes in that picture.
I love the idea of this kaiju. I love the idea of a walrus kaiju. I think the head is the only part of this that looks good. I think the rest of it looks bad.
It does
and
look
I think
a little...
it should have a tail. I don't think it should have back legs.
It does look a little bit slapped together. I will give you that. And I agree with you. It should have a tail like a proper walrus instead of legs. I feel like easeability of movement is the only reason.
Well, for sure. Legs. I think you could take this exact design and do art of it that I would enjoy. It's purely execution on this monster that I'm just like not that into.
I have seen some like redesigns of it that people have done that look really fucking cool. So
yeah. So,
but it's like a walrus. I love a fucking walrus. So I love that he's here.
Yeah, same. I like, again, truly love the concept of it, and I think it was the correct reaction to say we can't just do another reptile. We're literally in Antarctica. Like, can we do something inspired by something that lives in snow?
Magma was performed by Katsumi Tezuka, who's our OG and Gearus and are kind of sometimes like co-Godzilla in some movies. So
he's on his knees. Get Tezuka.
I know, right? Apparently also Terushi Nakano, who done some of the effects for the movie. He says that Haruo Nakajima also wore the suit specifically during the scene where Magma is surrounded by the jet pipes, because that was kind of a dangerous thing to film. But Nakajima has said that he doesn't have any memory of playing him, but also like he probably was barely in it because this, there wasn't much to do with it. So of course he wouldn't remember. He's probably, he's done way bigger roles. So
I used to think that was so absurd that you could like forget being in a movie, but I just hear over and over from people who do something really small in a movie or a TV show clearly forgetting that they did it. So I don't know, maybe he was in it and forgot. I would believe it.
Yeah. The suit was made from wire netting, cloth, and sponge, and the body and limbs were adhered with some latex and sawdust. I think all of that is pretty normal stuff.
You know what they should have done? I don't know why you talking about the materials made me think of this, but one of my big peeves about it is that huge seam down the back.
Yes, it makes it
one of
look
the
like
things-
a costume.
Well, right. And one of the things that I don't like about this walrus kaiju is that it has no hair or fur or anything. They easily could have given it a mane that goes down its back to cover that up, and I think that would have been cool.
Oh my god, yeah, a mane. I totally that would absolutely fix it, because then it isn't just like bare skin either. Give it a little bit of texture. Because unfortunately, like for a movie that has incredible special effects and looks really amazing, most of the time this monster doesn't. It really does look kind of half-assed. And I hate saying that because I'm sure the people making the suit weren't half-assing it, but it doesn't feel like it feels like an afterthought. It really does feel like an afterthought.
Well, it's a part of the movie that the director himself didn't care or he was never going to push them further to do it better, or you know what I mean? Like it makes sense to me.
Like he's probably not giving extensive notes or anything on it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What else? The eyes do have like an apparatus in them so they can glow blue in the movie. I like that his eyes glow. I think that's cool.
I like that his eyes glow, but I feel like I like the eyes in this picture so much. And I think them glowing kind of loses some of that like cute sort of big watery eye effect. And I didn't really think about it until I saw this picture. Because this does look a little baby, like.
But I don't know how it would show on film.
Yeah, that's always true, right? Who knows how it would actually film? But this looks kind of baby, and so I love it having these big watery eyes. It also makes it like devastating that they ultimately kill him, and it's fun to imagine like if this is baby, what's Mama look like? You know? Right.
Yeah. But I don't know. But also, they spend no time explaining what this thing actually is anyway. So,
right.
Like, I don't
know.
The tusks were sculpted from polyester resin, which was the first time that the sculptor Keizo Murase, who had worked on a bunch of these monsters at this point, the first time he ever used that material, just because he was trying to get something to make them look sharp. And that's obviously resin is something they would go on to use for a shit ton of monster costumes after this. So it's kind of innovative to figure out they could do it. And apparently Tsubaraya was so convinced by it. He was like, did you use like actual fucking ivory for these? Did you get like actual ivory tusks?
I was a little nervous. I was wondering.
Yeah. Because they look good. They do look really good. But yeah, no, it's all polyester resin, baby.
Nice. It looks great. Love tusks. Love Sabretooth. Love tusk. That more monsters should have this kind of tusk.
I agree. Yeah. They use some fire retardant material in it, since this guy's around fire a lot, which is good.
It's good to know
but
they did that.
apparently, even with that, the sort of jet pipe scene where it's just like surrounded by like fire right at it, they could still feel like really intense heat. Whoever was in the suit, whether assume it's Nakajima, but whoever was in the suit could feel the really intense heat. They tried to add melted plaster to it. That didn't work. They eventually found a different flame retardant material. Apparently, I'm not exactly sure what that was. I'm assuming that worked because they did it, or maybe he just put up with feeling intense 100-degree heat on his back. I don't know.
Well, I think, I mean, regardless of what they coat it with, I think it's still going to be hot, right? Like,
yeah, right.
They can't cool him down.
Yeah. They made a hand puppet for him as well. Yep. I love a hand puppet, man. I'm always into it, even if it looks very silly. Also, fun fact, I may or may not have mentioned this, but you wouldn't have had context, so you wouldn't have known who he was. But in Destroy All Monsters, Maguma was one of the monsters. He was scripted to appear in that. They were going to have Maguma in Destroy All Monsters among all the other ones. He actually would have been the monster. Yeah, he actually would have been the monster to attack Paris. But then he gets replaced.
Okay.
Then he was replaced by Baragon in the script, but then Baragon, remember the suit was all fucked. So then they replaced Baragon with Gorosaurus. So Maguma gets like twice replaced in that scene.
That's wild.
Yeah. And his roar is a combination of Rodan's cries, elephant trumpeting, and lion growls, apparently.
Sure. Makes sense.
Anything else you would like to say about this creature, probably for the entire rest of the podcast, because it's not like he's in the movie that much.
No, not really. I wish we had more to say about him, but it's just really, truly a nothing burger part of the movie.
Yeah, seriously. Right, let's talk about the characters then. As you know, as usual, it's a whole bunch of like a murderer's row of people we've seen before in Honda movies, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty significant ensemble in this movie too. I do think one of the interesting things I was looking at when doing this was, since this movie is from 1962, so we're kind of jumping back, obviously not like early, but like relatively early compared to where we are now with the Godzilla movies in the 70s for the Showa era. This is like for a number of actors, either the first time they're working with Honda or the first time they're working on a science fiction movie with Honda or with Toho, which I find sort of interesting, and then go on to do a bunch of stuff afterwards.
That makes a lot of sense, because I recognize a lot of these people and I was not thinking about what the timeline was for this. The only one I really thought about was Akira Kubo, who's the young cadet. I was thinking like, oh, this feels like before he was like the star of these movies. So somewhere in my brain I processed it to some degree.
So Akira Kubo, obviously we're very familiar with him from a ton of future movies, but for this movie at this point, this was his first movie he worked on with Honda, period, and only his second movie ever with Toho. The first movie he does is The Three Treasures, which also I think has a kaiju in it. But he'd been in a couple of Kurosawa films prior, and then I don't think in gigantic roles, I think, if I remember correctly, and then starts working with Honda in this movie essentially, and then he keeps getting cast after that. Kumi Mizuno, it's actually the same deal. This is her first time working with Honda on a sci-fi movie. She had first worked with him in one other movie before this called Seniors, Juniors, Coworkers in 1959. And then did the Three Treasures, not with Honda, but with Toho. So this is her second movie with Toho and her second movie with Honda.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, both of these women are women we go on to see or have seen, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah. I think the other one, Yumi Shirakawa, we had seen her. She had been in Rodan and the Mysterians previously to this, so she already is a Honda veteran, funny enough, in these. I do think it's interesting with Kumi Mizuno, because I'm like, it's so not a Kumi Mizuno role in this movie that she has.
I feel that way about Akira Kubo, too. I feel like both of them are in roles that they aren't, like, they settle into roles that make more sense for them. Akira Kubo ends up being more of a Boy Scout in a lot of the other movies we'll end up seeing him in, and he's just not in this. And Kumi Mizuno,
she's just a girlfriend.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, she needs to be like a femme fatale or like a clone or an alien or something. Like, it's weird that she's just like, oh, she's pining for her dead fiance, and this other guy is like, get over your dead fiance. Like,
good Lord.
I'm going to throw his picture out the window. I know he died like, I don't know, like 2 months ago or something, but get over it, lady.
Yeah, that was awful. That was so terrible.
Yeah. It's okay. He goes through a character arc. I mean, gets amnesia with 25 minutes of the movie left for no reason, and then gets over it, and it doesn't have an impact on anything.
Weird.
I don't fucking know.
I don't know. I think it's so strange, because I thought that was going to be so much more significant. It happens really late in the movie, which is weird.
Weirdly late in the movie, yeah.
The fact that like looking into the eye of Gorath seemed to have some sort of like deep psychological effect on him. I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? He's going to be like the key to unlocking whatever's going on here, because he's survived, right? Like the sole person to have survived contact with Gorath is going to have something that if they can just unlock his memory or unlock, whatever, they're going to solve the problem. Really, it's not that at all.
Nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
It frustrated me a lot. And I think that's another reason why, like, I think this movie just like leaves me kind of cold, is like, we've seen Honda movies where like the characters aren't really the movie's strong suit. There's enough, but it's like a fun enough movie that it's like not really the point, right? But this movie, it's not trying to be fun. It's trying to be very scientific, So I do think you need good characters in a wide ensemble cast to like anchor that. And I just don't think there's good character stories in this movie. Like, I really don't.
Yeah.
And like, it kind of sometimes at certain points just feels like a random events plot where it's like, here's a star going to destroy Earth, and here's a bunch of random stuff that happens with some random people that you've met that doesn't really have any impact on anything and doesn't lead to anything. It's, you know,
it's the kind of thing where, like, if this were meant to be an exploration, it could be vignettes, right? It could be
it could be very
character
episodic or something. Yeah,
that are all experiencing the same catastrophic event, and I think that could be really cool. It would be unconventional for a movie. Whatever, this movie didn't do well anyway, you know, so like, who cares? They could have just done that. The other thing is, like, like the wide cast thing is sometimes a huge problem with the movies that we watch. This is not one of them. A disaster, again, within this sort of like micro genre of Armageddon type movies, or like world disaster, like 2012 or whatever. Like, you want a wide cast of people. They don't need to be deep characters. They just need to go through something, because then you can bop around and you can hop around, which is exactly what it sounds like you wanted to do between your scientists and your military people and your everyday people. So, like, give them all something. It doesn't have to necessarily be consequential to the destruction plot, but they as a character should have something they go through, and each one of them you can do that with pretty easily. It's not your main focus, so there's no reason to not, even just in the most basic or tropey of ways, give them something transformative to do or experience.
What I will give this movie credit for is that with the ensemble cast, I do think they do a good job of like having a reason that everyone is connected, even if they're like kind of in varying degrees, even if they like have very different roles. Like,
that is impressive, because it's not just a bunch of people who are thrown together, which is fun, but it's not that, and that's a little easier to do.
Yeah, like you have your astrophysicist, your two astrophysicists, and then the sort of lead astrophysicist that Takashi Shimura plays, and then his daughter and her kid brother that are characters, and his daughter is friends with Kumi Mizuno's character, who was the fiance of someone who was on the ship in the prologue of the movie, but also was dating Akira Kubo's character and his love interest, who was a kid astronaut who was then going to intercept with the astrophysicist because he's an astronaut.
Girl, stop dating astronauts immediately.
Stop. Right? Yeah,
stop doing that.
Such a good point. That's such a good point. I know, like, you have a type.
I get it. I totally get it. But stop.
Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, I think they interconnect people really well. Am I making up that Jun Tazuki's character, the captain of the Hayabusa, this is his first Honda film, by the way. Like, he shows up in a bunch of movies after this. This is when he and Honda first worked together. I thought that was really cool too.
Well,
I mentioned that earlier.
I should have thought about that, because I was so excited to see him at the beginning of this movie in like a captain role. I was like, oh shit, we're gonna get like a Jun Tazuki like main character situation. Nope.
But then he's Astragon like right after this. So
he is.
But he's Takashi Shimura's.
Yeah.
Isn't he also Takashi Shimura's? Is he related to him, or am I making that up? They have the same last name, don't they?
He is Tomoko's father, because she goes to the funeral with his picture there, and which is wild. How does she find out that he died in that accident at the funeral?
That's right. Okay, Jun Tazuki is Tomoko's dad, and then Takashi Shimura is her uncle. Is that what it is? Because they all have the same last name.
I guess so.
They're all related somehow. That's what matters. But
I forgot about the relation, or just wasn't paying attention to the relation to the. I guess he's a paleontologist.
Wait, is he really a paleontologist?
Takashi Shimura's? I don't know. That's what Wikipedia
I just assumed he was
as.
also an astronomer-y guy. That's funny. Okay. I mean, he's just kind of...
Not that Wikipedia is necessarily the authority, but...
I mean, he also... I love the man so much. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. He does not do that much in this movie. He is just kind of there.
Yeah, which I guess is why. I guess it makes sense that I wasn't like totally charting his relation with people in that sense.
Yeah.
But.
So okay, I was just celebrating how well connected they are, but and now I'm just like, I don't fucking know. But the fact that there are that many connections in this, I think it is pretty cool that they were making it a point that it's not just a bunch of random people crammed together, that there are a lot of connections and family members, even if it's a little bit confusing. But yes, it is so wild that she just walks home to see a funeral for her dad, and that's how she learns it. No one called you?
Like, this is not like a Doug, they didn't have cell phones situation. Like, how has she not been informed? How did they get a funeral together that fast? Like, they like got the transmission and immediately were like, funeral, go. Oh shoot, no one called his daughter. It's so weird.
It's so funny. It's so funny. Akihiko Harada shows up. Kenshi Sahara shows up.
Love to see it.
Apparently, Kenshi Sahara, it's another one of his sort of cameo king roles where he doesn't really is doing that much. However, apparently he had a broken ankle while he was filming this and was doing it anyway.
What?
And was just like in pain the whole time.
Brother, take time off. What are you doing?
This is the man who like pulled his own tooth out for a movie, right? So like,
it is, yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Ostensibly, may or may not have pulled his own tooth out.
Sure.
Claimed that he did, but maybe just had a regular dental procedure done.
Right. At least showed the gap in his teeth. That was real.
That was Matango, right?
It was what I don't know if it was Oh yeah, it was, because he was he was like a piece of shit in that movie, right?
So listen to our Patreon episode of Matango if you haven't heard it.
I think it was
really
that
great
one.
I think it was that one. I was also looking up to see, because there are, they try to have like international cooperation in this. So like there's a couple of white dudes and people who speak English and some funny British accents in this movie and stuff like that. Other than George Furness, who we saw in The Mysterians, I don't think any of these are anyone that I can find anything about. Like one of the guys is literally named Ross Bennett. Not easy to search for a Ross Bennett. So, Yeah.
It's funny because I felt like there were probably some people that I thought I was recognizing people, but I truly was like, I don't know. These are just guys in the 50s who all wear the same thing and have the same glasses. Like, I don't know.
Right. We didn't really talk about, like, I guess the ostensible lead, Ryo Akebe, who's Dr. Tozawa, the actual astrophysicist who like comes up with all of the ideas. We have not seen him in a movie, but he's done plenty of other stuff. We just not ones that we've intersected with. Like he
I was
did
wondering,
a lot of,
because I was like, this guy's really hot, and I feel like we would have noticed this before, and I don't know if, like, I was like, why have I not noticed him? And I guess it's because I haven't seen him.
He's done stuff like Battle in Outer Space and The War in Space. So he's done other sci-fi films that we just haven't watched. He did a bunch of like Yakuza movies with Toei as well. So he's got a career, just has not intersected with us yet on the podcast. Okay,
interesting. I mean, I think it is definitely worth talking about him because he is clearly the I mean, he's the vessel for Honda's desire to make this an optimistic, hopeful movie, right? Like, this guy is the one who is like the young one who is optimistic that is it actually Shimura's character? Is he the one who's sort of like these young people who have hope? Like, there's somebody older who's like, young people think they can solve the world's problems and sometimes you just can't. That's not like a direct quote, but that's the idea. I
don't remember actually if it was him or not.
Character, the astrophysicist, is the one that we are supposed to be rooting for against that idea, and that Honda clearly is trying to push this message through. But I mean, there's no real like tension between those characters to really like sell that too hard. But I do like this guy, and I think he is rootable, and I think he's probably doing the most in this movie as far as selling an idea or selling a philosophy, which I really appreciate, because somebody needed to be doing that in this movie, and I think it's really kind of just him. He's the one that you're actually sort of overcoming things and like pushing against some kind of system, or at least the haters, like
the haters.
So I did like him. I thought he was good.
Yeah, I liked him too. It would have been nice if there was a little more conflict, and if he actually had not that like the stakes aren't high with the star going to destroy the world,
but they should feel higher if that's the case.
I wish there was more emotional stakes, because like nobody seems particularly stressed in this movie ever.
But it's interesting to know that was the goal.
Right. But I do it, but because there isn't anyone for him to like ever bump up against, or that's going to, cause any sort of conflict, like on a personal level. Like I don't know, it doesn't make him a very compelling character, even if he's kind of driving things.
Yeah, well, and like his victory should be our catharsis as an audience, and I don't think you get that, right? Like, if he's the one constantly pushing forward and pushing up against the people who either don't believe he can do it or think that it's a waste of time, or who in a different version of the movie are actively working against him to succeed or whatever, then the moment that, you know, Gorath misses the Earth, we should be as stoked as the people who are throwing him around that control center, you know?
It's the same deal. I mean, I think, again, we're going to keep coming back to this, that it's just like the movie's just like weirdly missing conflict in it, because like even on the wider theme of like people coming together, like I think it's Harada's character has that line where it's just sort of like, oh yeah, this, you know, endeavor is made up of white people, black people, and Asians, and it's going to take a lot of time for them to, you know, to get over their problems and everything, but we can do it if we work together. But then like you watch it and there's not really like everyone just immediately works together. Like they have one sequence, maybe two sequences in the United Nations where they have the lightest bit of dissent from like the fictional nations of Krenian and the USSO, and like the British guy who sounds kind of drunk with like really weird glasses.
Yeah.
But like, and they're sort of like, this might not work. And everyone else is like, I think it will. And then they're like, well, let's do it. And like, that's the extent. That's the extent of like the interpersonal conflict or the political conflict. And again, I know that Honda wanted to have a positive outlook, but like it would have still been positive. I think this is to your point that you're saying, even at the top, it still would have been positive to show people having the wrong ideas and having some level of dissent, or presenting incorrect ideas, or coming into conflict or pushing back, but then that being overcome and the good guys are proven right, and it is a positive like outlook by the end of it. The fact that even the United Nations, when they're outright saying in certain scenes that like, it's going to be hard for all of us to work together, but we got to do it, that's what world peace looks like, that they're not even ever presenting anyone like providing the counterpoint to fight against it all. It seems like the world is already pretty unified in 1980 when this is taking place anyway.
And if you're going to have, that's a really funny thing to think about, actually.
It's 1980.
And if you're going to insist on this being a movie where everybody actually comes together and is willing to trust each other and willing to work together and share resources and put aside their differences, and you're unwilling to have the humans be the conflict for each other, then like you need to have something happening that is making it harder for them to succeed, because then at the very least it's like, well, we keep moving forward because we insist on working together. And the monster is the worst part of this movie, and that's like the one thing that is ostensibly supposed to set them back. And there's really nothing else that's like, well, I guess there's like the one moment where there's like a collapse in the cave, but like more of that would have at least worked if you were insistent on everybody like really driving forward, right?
Yeah.
Or more effects on the planet as it gets closer and closer. I know he was like really concerned with like the science of it all, but like, bro, it's a movie and none of this is real. So like if you were going to at least have weird things begin to happen to the Earth because there's this new celestial body in the solar system, like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, even like I forgot about the part where there's just that random cave-in that happens. But I do feel like it would feel like, because as it stands, like I said earlier, like it almost feels like a random events plot at certain points in this movie. But if it was sort of taking that vignette approach that you were talking about, and it is more like, here's what some people are doing, and here's just some obstacles that come up that we couldn't have predicted. Like, we didn't think there would be a cave-in, but there was, and now we've lost like 72 hours. Holy fuck, what do we do? Like, even a fucking monster maybe would have fit in better if they'd structured it better or something like that. We're sort of like, there's so many things that we can't predict that is making this hard. Like, because that's real, right? That's just like your best laid plans can't account for just like random circumstance sometimes. And I think that like the cave-in, I think, is meant to kind of be something like that it's just like, we couldn't predict that this would happen and now we just have to work harder. But I think that only like that one thing, and then your walrus monster, and then amnesia are the only things that happen throughout this whole movie.
But like, I would argue those aren't even successful in their attempts to, like, any of them, not just the monster, successful in their attempts to raise the stakes because,
It's true.
or to drive the message home, because the commitment to a pacifist approach in this movie I can admire, but then it really does feel like he's also committed to not putting people in danger in weird places, right? Because like, you're willing to throw an entire spaceship into a star, but you're not willing to show like what it would be like to try to save people from this cave-in and have that be a victory for humanity and teamwork. Like, you know what I mean? Like the cave-in happens, and the only real consequence of the cave-in is like, well, I guess we're gonna have to start over at this part. It's not like right, like that. Yeah. It's not like that part of the movie is about like them saving each other from the cave-in or digging people out, or there's no like tense sequence where you're not sure if one of our main characters is gonna make it out of the cave-in or whatever. And those don't have to be angry moments. They don't have to be interpersonal violent moments.
Yeah.
They can still be victories for humanity working together while you have these tense moments. It's like, I'm starting to hone in on, I think, what I really think is missing. Like we know there's something missing, but like the things that could have actually been put in here without compromising Honda's vision at all, I think I'm starting to see.
Yeah.
Because like the guys were barely in danger with the monster. Like I didn't think that they were going to be destroyed by the monster either.
That's so true.
It's not like they were going to lose a key scientist or anything.
Yeah, like he puts his foot through the building and then they just evacuate and then go shoot him and come back and are like, guess we'll rebuild this, and then they do, and it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, I was waiting for the flood to ruin one of the center, like one of their control centers or something. Again, that doesn't have to be war, that doesn't have to be violence, but like they could be saving each other, or they could be persevering, or they could be,
so true.
know. So that's what I think is kind of weird about this movie, is like there aren't those like human victories along the way.
And because of that means that like anything that happens, there's like no consequence to it, because at the end of the day the earth still gets moved and they save the day. So like we don't get any catharsis from those human interactions or human victories. We don't get the stakes raised by these bad things that are happening. Everything just kind of goes fine and nothing changes.
Right. Curing Akira Kubo's memory loss does not give them key information.
Is that supposed to be a character thing, or it's like now that he's been through this, he's gonna be a better boyfriend to Kumi Mizuno? Like I don't like, what does that mean? Like
I don't know. I genuinely don't know, because it didn't mean anything that he lost his memory other than I guess that's sad.
It's so weird. And again, that happens with like 25 minutes of the movie left. Like it's so weird. It's strange.
There's something about this movie that feels like I wouldn't be as hard on it if it were a book, in a weird way. Like if this were like a hard sci-fi book where like the point of it is to and I usually am not super into them, but I get it, I understand. I feel like this might have worked better as like a hard sci-fi that is less interested in the conflict and more interested in telling you how they got through this thing. Because that's kind of what this movie is, and I don't know why it is that doesn't work as well for a movie, but I just don't think it does.
This might be a weird comparison, but it reminds me of how it's a thing that I don't agree with, but it's helped me, I think, maybe understand what some people sometimes say as a criticism to like Christopher Nolan movies when they feel like that Christopher Nolan movies don't work for them. And it's not a thing for me, because Nolan movies generally always work for me, even the ones people don't like.
Sure.
But I know people who also kind of run cold with Nolan movies, usually describe it as something where it's just like, it feels like it's a movie that's very mechanical, where it's like the interest is in the premise of it, but the characters don't feel emotionally authentic or characters you can get invested in. And there isn't like an emotional story that they get invested in. So they end up just watching a movie that just seems like a very mechanical plot that's just exploring one very hyper specific concept, or like high concept, rather than like a narrative story. And so they don't feel emotionally invested in it and don't feel satisfied with it. And I kind of feel like that's how I feel with this movie, that it feels like a very mechanical, like, here is a big premise. Here are a bunch of special effects things. That's what you want. And here are some characters that are doing things, but none of them are characters you're ever going to get invested in. None of these are conflicts that feel very cathartic or that you can get invested in or that are very compelling. It is just some like science things that are happening on screen and then it's over.
Well, and what I'm really wrestling with, and maybe I'm getting to the point where I'm repeating myself too much, but like what I'm really wrestling with this is like, I'm not inherently against that idea for a movie. There's no reason to me that cannot be a movie. But I don't think that this movie is doing something different enough from a blockbuster movie, or like just a standard like entertainment movie, to really sell itself as that. And it was never going to be allowed to be that. So it's never going to succeed if that's what it's trying to be, you know?
Yeah.
Because like movies can be vibes. Like there are definitely movies that, I mean, horror movies love to be a vibe nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, and I like some of them quite a lot, but like a movie can just explore a particular idea or vibe and I can be okay with it. But it has to really go in all in on that.
Do you think, well, this wouldn't have fixed anything, but I wonder if it would have felt a little better. This is a thought that I'm just coming up with.
Sure.
I don't know if it's going to even make sense, but like this movie takes place in 1980. It's meant to be a future movie. Technically, this is a movie where space exploration has already happened and they're very advanced and everything. It's not like, I mean, it's still a big deal, but it's not like that. It's not that big of a deal for people to just be going into space and exploring.
Right.
If this had been even harder on that and maybe even more into the future where it's kind of a Star Trek-y utopia and that's how they were presenting it, would it feel better? Like, is it too close to the real present day? Like Star Trek, like sometimes is presented as just a utopia. And so like there often isn't a lot of conflict in some Star Trek stories that are and it's just exploring a concept. Obviously there is a lot of times, but like there are some Star Trek episodes where there's not really any interpersonal conflict. It is just them exploring a concept in their utopia they exist in technically. And I think this movie, is trying to exist in a space similar to that, but it doesn't feel like it's a far future utopia yet. So it doesn't really work in the same way, I guess.
I don't think that just making it a far future utopia is what solves the movie, but I do think putting it into a far future utopia makes it easier for the person making this to get to the solution, which is, I think, like, if your assumption is that there is no conflict in your far future utopia, you have to present that conflict elsewhere. And that conflict can just be, you know, existential destruction or, you know, an existential threat. But I think it's easier to see that when you have already accepted the premise that there is no conflict in society. But he's not making a movie where there's no conflict in society. He's making a movie where conflict exists and we as humanity choose to set that aside, you know? So like for his movie, the movie he wants to make, he like needs humanity to not be so far in the future that it has Star Trek utopia.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah.
Which I think some of the ideas he's really, really married to and committed to are, I think, what is preventing us to getting to the solution. So I don't know that he gets there, even if it is further in the future, but I think most people get there if it's further in the future. It's a fascinating movie, and I think I will always sort of feel like a bit of an affinity to it just based on the weird, extremely specific micro genre within sci-fi that it exists in. But it's something about it feels just kind of like flawed, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I love though?
What?
Those fucking paintings of the future.
Yep. That was one of you. I had like two different things I want to bring up and that was one of them. Yep.
Oh my God. Cool. I want those as prints. I want to hang them in my home.
Painted like a bunch of buildings like being sucked into space.
Incredible.
So good, dude.
It basically just looks like a post-apocalyptic Earth with like a Saturn ring of like Earth debris. Like it's so funny the way that they painted that.
So funny. There little things like that are what make this movie, I think, still like really interesting. Like
the craft of this movie is really
craft
incredible.
Of this movie. Like there's the moment when Gorath is passing through Saturn and like absorbs Saturn's rings.
Yes,
that shit rules, and it's creepy. It's like it's well executed. It looks really cool, and it's also like that's one of those moments where it's sort of like, this does feel real. Like, this feels really scary. Like, you are literally like, it is so I almost said it's so iconic that Saturn has those rings, but like kind of like it's like
it's kind of an icon, like, you know.
That is how you, no matter how old you are, you can be a little kid and you know what Saturn is because it has the fucking rings. You know what
it's
that
the
looks
only
like.
thing you need to know about Saturn to know that is Saturn. Yeah,
right. And so to see this star just like absorb them and destroy them, like it feels like visceral. Like, oh God, you
stripped
like,
Saturn's
really,
identity away.
You stripped its identity away. Like what is that? What is that bare planet there?
That naked ass
what
planet.
else is left? Yeah.
Right. What can we believe in if not Saturn's rings? Yeah, no, I love that stuff.
Be wrecking people's horoscopes, right?
Oh
like,
my God.
Talk about Saturn's return. Like, what if Saturn doesn't have his fucking rings anymore?
Oh no. Anytime they show something in space intersecting with Gorath, I loved it. You know, like even if I was going to say even if, but kind of especially because you can see it so clearly, like what they're doing with their special effects and everything. I love seeing one of their spaceships just fly across the screen. Like it's all so good. Like I love it. It looks so good. There's also like the moment where the astronauts, for some reason, instead of the individual pod craft going back into the hangar, they send 2 astronauts out to retrieve it. That scene was amazing. I loved that so much. The 2 little like action figures flying across the screen to and then them putting like
miniatures in this movie.
The most open, insecure hook on the front of that spaceship ever cracked me up. But yeah, I mean, I love their spacesuits. I love the way the spacecrafts look. I love the way the space stations look. They all look different and distinct, but like a very specific kind of retrofuturist. Like not the only, like there's one kind of retrofuturism I think people think of when they think of retrofuturism, but this is like a slightly different one where it is technically still that because it is a future imagined, 60 years ago. But it is slightly different, and it was cool to see.
This is like Tsubaraya kind of like operating at his best, I think.
It's so
like
good.
This is Tsubaraya firing on all cylinders. Like if like that is the reason to come to this movie is the special effects and the miniatures and the wild celestial shit. Gorath itself looks so fucking cool and it looks scary and creepy. Like it's like this fiery red thing and it's like I think
practically what is it?
I was looking for this. I don't actually know. I'm sure that there's something somewhere that I was just missing, but like the usual resources and books and websites I usually go to
aren't talking about Gorath.
Right. Or if they do, they talk about like magma because it's a kaiju.
Sure.
I'm not totally sure what this is made out of. I would love someone who, if they know, or if they know a better resource for like this movie, I would love to hear what it was made of because I couldn't actually find what it was made out of. I imagine it's the same sort of thing that a lot of other sci-fi movies when they do planets.
But it has to be something translucent because there's lights inside of it, which is what makes me curious. Like I know that they like animate over it too, but like there seems to be lights inside the object, I think, right?
I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell with that thing. And it's almost like kind of glittery at certain points too. It feels like they added like a glitter to it.
Yep.
In the same way that they added to like Hedora,
Right. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I would love to know exactly how they did that. If anyone knows, please write in and we'll read your comment in the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it looks fucking cool. It looks really fucking cool.
I was really so after we made our predictions about this movie in our last episode, we were talking a little bit about the movie, not anything specific. Don't worry, anybody. But I did ask, like, does this movie have a monster in it? And you said yes, it has a monster in it. And I was watching it, because then I was like, is Gorath the monster? And you were like, no, Gorath is not a monster in like an Atragon way. And so then I was watching the movie and I was like, there's a monster in here somewhere. What is the monster? So for a long time I was expecting, and I thought maybe you were playing with me. I thought that Gorath was going to be a sentient planet, or that there was going to be a monster inside the planet that only Akira Kubo's character had ever seen.
I genuinely forgot that I told you there was a monster. Well, because I hadn't seen it before. So I didn't know. I assumed that I knew that magma was cut out of the American version. So I knew that he wasn't like the main source of conflict, but I still thought he was going to be in the movie more than he was.
Sure. Well,
So
I mean,
that's why I was sort of like, or it would be something where he's like in the prologue or something like that.
Right.
So that's why I was sort of like, yeah, I know there's a monster in it, but I if I had seen the movie before we had talked about it, I wouldn't have told you that, honestly, because I think it would have been even more fun surprise.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't
have
have known what to tell me anyway, so it's not a huge deal. And I already predicted.
Even when I was watching it, knowing what Magma was, like, because he shows up so late in the movie too. Like, I remember looking at the timestamp and be like, am I watching the wrong version of it? And actually, this is the version that he's cut out of. Like, I was worried. I was genuinely worried.
Yeah, for sure.
Until it showed up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so strange. I just thought of a question that's totally unrelated, but I don't want to forget it again. How did they do the jets, the field of jets? Like, what did you come across anyone laying out what that was? Because I would love to know the scale of that, because it's obviously real fire.
I don't know. I mean, I imagine, I didn't really think to even look into that, but I mean, I imagine it's another miniature set.
Right, there's got to be a miniature version of it with just like I guess torches underneath. I mean,
probably so.
In the room, that would be hot. Like just that prop would be hot. So
right,
it's fascinating, but strange movie.
The only other two things I want to, one thing, wrapped in two things that I want to say. This movie arguably is a Christmas movie, because there is a Merry Christmas robot at one point. It does take place in Christmas at the beginning of it. I love when Akiriko is just in the fucking Christmas robot costume. It's just so funny to me.
Yeah.
And this movie, in a way, you could argue is a musical. It does have two full musical sequences in it. It's the same song. It's that space pilot song, but it's like sung by two different people in two different contexts. One, they just break out in song in the helicopter.
The helicopter they stole, right?
I think so. They steal a helicopter and break out in song, which I'm like, this is an in-universe, them breaking out in song. This is a musical. And then there's a party later where that We Are Space Pilot song is sang again at a party and like in full, like it's just a cover of it essentially. And like, you could argue that like there needs to be more music for it to be a musical, but it's two full musical sequences in this movie. That might be enough to call it a musical, really.
More than one, it counts.
I don't know, man. There's some musicals where they're only songs in like the first half of it. Well, like Goofy Movie, I think only has like 2 or 3 songs in it, and that's technically a musical. Like,
sure.
Gorath is a Christmas movie and a musical.
I was going to say
that's where I'm putting my. What am I putting my poles down in? Is what I almost said.
Planting your flags?
I'm not sure. Planting my flags. That's it. Flags on a pole. So I was half right. I was halfway there.
True. There are your debates, everybody. Debate whether Gorath is a Christmas movie and whether it's a musical.
Yeah.
I think Derek and I would probably fall on opposite sides of both of those, but
okay. Well,
I do get it.
Sure. Oh my God. The last thing I want to call out for this movie is just thank you, Robert, for giving us a nice copy of it, because this is a movie that's very hard to find, and I did want to make sure we watched the version with the actual kaiju in it, as irrelevant as he is, just because to talk about the kaiju. So it was very helpful to have a good, high quality version of it. I know he puts a lot of effort into like archiving versions of these movies and like remastering them himself in some cases.
Incredible.
Especially versions that are like hard to find. So thank you for providing us with that. You were such a great resource for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I did the cover art for this one. Would you like to see it?
I would absolutely love to see it, especially because I saw a post of yours prior to that I think is related to this. Ooh. I like that.
I made Magma a fat fuck in this because he's a walrus. He should be. So I fatten him up. I think he looks better that way. If they ever,
nice.
I think he looks better that way.
Nice. I really like the way you did Gorath too. Oh, and this like sort of like reverse space star situation. This like high contrast orange sky with like the splatter effect
Thank you.
is very cool. Yeah, this is great.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I like my fat fuck boy. I think I do like Magma despite how how much he represents like this movie's faults, honestly.
Well,
and
sure.
how unwell rendered he is in the movie. I think he kind of rules.
Magma deserves better. Like that, I can say he's my least favorite part of this movie, but he deserves better. Yeah. Both of those things can be true for sure.
Yeah. Well, if you want to see the art and all of our artwork that other guest artists have done as well, find it on glitterjaw.com/3onk. We have a cover art gallery of all the uncut cover art that doesn't have the titles on it, and obviously on all your podcast apps and our social media at Glitterjaw as well. If you want to see high quality versions of the art that we make and commission.
Yes.
I have one little mailbag thing on the last episode we released, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Zachzilla, previous guest of ours, you can hear him on the Son of Godzilla episode.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful guest, and he wrote in with some really cool thoughts about Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla that I think is really interesting.
Oh, nice.
That I don't think any of us thought about. He said, loved hearing your thoughts, guys. This movie is so colorful and fun. One of my fave things it does is play around with disguises and dupes. Mechagodzilla is disguised as a Godzilla dupe. The Interpol agents are dupes for the aliens to the audience. The Shisha statue that goes overboard is a dupe. And the two suns is a dupe too.
Oh.
Very clever thematic framing the whole way through.
Wow.
Can't wait to hear your thoughts on Terror Mechagodzilla. Yeah, right?
It's a great observation.
It's a whole movie about like duality and things that are mirroring other things and two versions of things and fake versions of things.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I never considered that. That's
great.
really cool.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's really awesome.
Yeah. So thanks for reading that in. I fucking love that. That's such a great observation. Makes me like that movie even more, and I already did.
Yeah, same. Right.
Yeah. All right. The hard part, I think, predictions.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to ask you. Obviously, we're watching this for a reason, so some element of this movie in some way does show up in at least one of the three finale movies that we have that you have not seen. So we have three finale movies. We have Godzilla. We have Godzilla versus Destoroyah from Heisei, Godzilla Final Wars from Millennium, and Terror Mechagodzilla from the Showa era. Which movie or movies do you think an element of this movie appears in, and what element do you think that is?
Okay, so I think we talked a little bit about this already, right? And I think I predicted that this would be another case where, like, well, I think I talked about I don't remember what we talked about, but I don't think
I remember we talked about, because we talked about what you talked about, and what you talked about was that there are times when what appears in another movie isn't like a major element or a kaiju or something, but like something weird. So I think the maser cannons or something like that.
Right. So I think my first prediction was that there would be some kind of vehicle or technology that would be really significant in Gorath that would reappear in another movie. I am taking that back. I don't think that's the case. I think the easiest answer is that, Magma shows up again or something, but I actually really don't think it's going to. I know that there was a moment where it was supposed to in Destroy All Monsters. Is that what it was that you said?
Yeah.
But I don't know that I'm seeing it for that guy.
Poor guy.
But I do think Gorath is an interesting thing to think about. And I think Gorath, I don't know why they would bring the planet or the star back. But it does feel like an underutilized idea. And I do think if you were ever going to bring back Gorath, it would be for a finale. And I feel like the eras that would do something like that would be Heisei or Millennium. And so I feel like, weirdly enough, I think we're watching this Showa movie for one of the future eras. And I think Gorath in some way is going to once again be an existential threat that either brings something to Earth or something is born out of it in the way that I thought was going to happen in this movie. I think that's kind of what it is. Like, I think it's more that than they have to like stop Gorath itself. I think Gorath brings something or is a harbinger of something, some sort of final monster. I already kind of have a theory brewing for what Final Wars might be based on like a weird bit of things that I have. So I'm going to say Heisei and Destoroyah in some way, shape, or form involves Gorath. I don't really know Destoroyah, but I know I've seen glimpses of it, and it's some sort of red thing. I think so. I would like to link those two in some way, shape, or form. I don't know where it comes from, but I would like to think it comes from Gorath.
Well, you're in luck because that's the movie we're watching next on June 27th. We're watching Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, which is the finale of the Heisei era. The previous movie in the Heisei era that we watched was Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla.
Well, space, right? Exactly. It's threats coming from space. This makes sense.
So, with all of that in mind, I mean, you've already started touching on it. Like, what do you think you know about this movie?
I don't know anything about the movie.
Okay.
I know, I mean, it's part of this era, so there are things that I can kind of assume in that, like, I'm sure Miki will be there in some way, shape, or form. I don't know, like, from what the movie is called or its place as a finale, I don't really know anything. I said, I think I've begun to figure out what monster is Destoroyah, and so I've avoided looking directly at it when I think I'm seeing it.
Sure.
But it seems like some sort of red, almost like demonish sort of thing, which makes me want to associate it with this like hell star that is Gorath. So I don't know if this is a finale that is also sort of like a existential threat to Earth, but this is all totally guessing. I don't know anything about how this era ends.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't even know if it was like supposed to be the end. That's the thing I don't know yet. That I know you'll tell me, but
we'll find out one way or another.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you answered a lot of my questions. So you said you don't really know much about Destoroyah other than what you think it looks like. I'm trying to think. Is there any other elements you think will pop up in this movie from like the Heisei era or like other kaiju other than the titular Destoroyah and Godzilla?
I mean, I don't really remember, and I don't think it necessarily matters, the specifics of what has or hasn't happened to Mothra in this continuity. But I would expect if they know it's a finale, Mothra is showing up in some way, shape, or form. I also think if my theory of Destoroyah being associated with like a hell star in some way, it would make sense to have Mothra be there as a support in some way. So I can't imagine that there aren't other kaiju. My number one pick on the board would be Mothra in some way, shape, or form.
Okay. Cool. All right. That's all I got, I think. We'll find out about that in a couple weeks. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to talk about that one, actually.
Me too. I'm excited to know what it is. Because it's a name that's kind of hard to ignore, you know, like you can't. It's like very notable monster name.
And I'm sure that was intentional. I'm sure when they came out with that, the Toho offices, they were like, "This is a slam dunk, isn't it?"
Right? Sick name,
Destoroyah. Yeah,
it'd be really funny if one, I'm way off on what it is, and two, it's like not scary.
Yeah. Well, Doug, if people want to find you and everything you're working on, where's the best place to do that?
You can find me all over the place at Ikibooley, ICKYBOOLEY. You can also listen to me on a bunch of other podcasts, most of which I do with Derek. We do one called Walloping Web Snappers, which is a weekly deep dive into every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. We obviously have this one, Skronk. There was a predecessor to that called Falling with Style, where we watched every Pixar movie in the Pixar Animation Studios canon. And then you can also listen to me on a podcast called Novel Gaming that I do with my friend Katie, where we catch up on all the books, video games, and sometimes other media we've been enjoying lately. What about you, Derek?
Sure. In addition to what Doug listed, I also have Gimmicks, where we look at high concept, experimental, structure breaking episodes of TV, and Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, where we look at these Simpsons tie-in video games. All those shows we mentioned are part of Glitterjaw. So if you'd like to find other queer creators who talk about Glitterjaw, you can check out the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective at glitterjaw.com. Follow it on Blue Sky at Glitterjaw and Instagram at Glitterjaw Pods. And it is Pride Month if you're listening when this episode comes out. Happy Pride to gay icon Gorath, I guess.
You know what? Yes, I accept.
It's pretty
that.
glittery, right? It's
right.
pretty glittery. I accept Gorath as family. I think you know,
absolutely.
Just a chaos queen, just destroying everything in her path.
Yes.
You know what? Gays like to walk fast and just like shove straight people out of the way. That's all Gorath is doing. All the straight
Earth.
planets out there. You know, yeah, right.
You think you're hot shit, Saturn?
Wrecking Saturn's rings, like she's wrecking the rings that are put on straight couples.
Of marriage. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Icon. The reason I brought that up was because on Glitterjaw, we're celebrating Pride Month by launching a new variety podcast feed called Glitterjaw Presents. This is something that the entire collective is doing together. Glitterjaw Presents basically features hosts from all across Glitterjaw shows, including some friends that we've made along the way as well. And that can be literally anything. So we'll do like one-off movie and TV episodes, miniseries, crossover specials, weird experiments. We've got a lot of weird, fascinating ideas thrown out there. For example, if you're listening now, an episode that's already out is our Pride 2026 playlist that features song picks from a bunch of hosts across the collective and a bunch of different songs, as well as like commentary and insights from us as well. I learned so much listening to that episode about the history of music and about musicians I'd never heard of before. Because I think everyone picked either a queer musician or a musician that's like important to like queer people in some way. And it's like a very wide variety of music and some like interesting deep cuts as well. So absolutely listen to that episode. I don't think it'll be out by the time this episode drops, but sometime soon we'll also be dropping an episode on the 12 movies that made us queer. Doug is on that episode along with host Chels from the Q Division. You've heard her on a couple of episodes of Skronk as well. And also a guest co-host Paige to talk about movies that shaped the queer people that they are. I'm very excited to listen to that because already some of the picks that I saw that y'all picked, I'm like, I really want to hear more about this. So definitely check that out. Glitterjaw Presents is on its own feed across podcast platforms, but you can also find all those links on glitterjaw.com. And join our Patreon at patreon.com/wallopingwebsnappers. That's of course the name of our Spider-Man podcast, but that supports everything Doug and I do together. So you can find Skronk bonus episodes. We mentioned that Matango episode. You can listen to that on our Patreon. Check out our Discord as well. There's a link to that in the show notes if you want to chat with us and other listeners. And email us at skronkpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like, please rate, review, and subscribe on our podcast platforms, and join us on June 27th for the Heisei era finale. It makes me really sad. I love the Heisei movies.
Me too.
The era finale, Godzilla versus Destoroyah from 1995.
Nice. Ooh, that's a 95. That feels weird, right? Like I was like fully a sentient human being.
Yeah, I know, right? All right. See you then.
Bye.
狭い地球や未練はないさ未知の世界に夢がある